if you have a goal and if you want to do something, there is always a way that you can get there. It's maybe not an easy one. Maybe you have to take a detour, or you have to take a step down, step back, but you can always reach your goal.
What do you think about mandatory military service for young men in Switzerland? Do you believe it helps to create more responsible and mentally strong men compared to the Western society?
That's a very good question. So when you lead by example, I think it's always the best. I mean, it's like parenting, you know. Your kids, they see you, they do what you do. And in a company, it's the same. And the boss goes for a coffee break for half an hour. His people will go, yeah, of course, this is normal. The boss does it the same way.
What is one thing you know that you wish more people knew?
I wish that all our kids that go to school would have to visit a class that learns them about nutrition. This business developed more into nutraceuticals. So until last year, when we owned the company, it was probably one of the biggest manufacturers of nutraceuticals, like gummy bears with vitamins, a lot of vitamins. But in the beginning of last year, we sold all our activities. We all, the board members, we were all even in pension, one, and I got to pension, and the other one is 2 years in pension. So we didn't really see who would follow. So we were looking for a buyer for the company, and we could find it was actually our biggest client that took over. This client had no own production, and so it was for him it was fantastic. For us, it was fantastic as well.
Why did you decide to relocate the company several times, and what were the benefits or challenges?
It's not really. It's just the holding company that was moved. And they were always behind that. Were also always tax reasons and cost reasons.
Hello and welcome to Robert Dobai Show. This podcast has the mission to obtain and share valuable insights from experts in different fields. In this episode, my guest is Konrad Kaufmann, athlete, father, husband, and entrepreneur. He is a former ice hockey player and current CrossFit Games athlete in the Masters category, born and raised in Switzerland. We started our discussion with sports-related topics, then moved on to business and finances for the main part, and finished the discussion with some personal questions. The sponsor of today's episode is WeFit. They are the owners of the gym where we filmed this podcast and where I'm currently working as a coach. I recently moved to Switzerland and they offered me a warm welcome from day one. I found a grateful and coachable community, and I recommend you to book your free trial and convince yourself. They are opening new locations around Zurich, and if you live in the area, you should check their website. I will leave the details in the description. If you want to support this podcast, one of the best things you can do is to subscribe to my channel. Another thing is to subscribe to the Lionscage training programs. Lionscage was my CrossFit affiliate in Romania, and based on my expertise, I created these programs for people who are training by themselves, have limited time, travel a lot, maybe train at home, and enjoy training with free weights and the body weight using minimal equipment. In contrast to the basic CrossFit methodology, I removed exercises like Olympic weightlifting, keeping gymnastics movements, and a few other things from the programs to increase sustainability, limit the equipment needs, and offer the most return on time investment. I like to say that Lionscage 60 is your garage gym training program, and Lionscage 40 is your traveling companion because of its versatility and ideal fit for any hotel gym or your living room. The programs have a 2-week free trial, and I will also leave the details in the description. Now, let's get to the show. Konrad Kaufmann, thank you for accepting my invitation.
My pleasure.
I see you as a role model, especially from what I've seen in the gym.
Okay.
I definitely know that I want to be like you when I grow up.
Oh, that's very kind.
You are, without a doubt, the fittest 65-year-old man that I met. And my first question for you is, at what age did you first become interested in sports, and how did it happen?
Oh, actually, what age? That was very young. That was like probably 12 years when I joined the local hockey club in, that was Küsnacht. It's a little village. They had a hockey team, and then I started from there. That was my main sport, doing ice hockey until I played until I was 50, even about, around 50. And I played, like in minor leagues, and I played up to the highest league, everything, and that is really my main sport. That was my main sport, but then I started to get difficulties with my hips, and I needed surgery on both sides. And from that point on, I totally switched to other sports.
What kind of physical preparation were you doing when you were playing ice hockey?
Well, usually there was summer training where you did just like conditioning stuff and a little bits of, my time, there were a little bit of weights, but a lot of running and like circuits and that stuff. And when I joined higher leagues, we had more strength work in summer. And actually, the time when I did my last season, the next season I couldn't do because they wanted to train 6 times in summer, every day. And that was not possible because I started to work. I finished my studies, so I had the opportunity to do, for 2 years, joining a team in order to finance my studies. So I joined that team. They were paying nicely. It was Zürcher ZSC, the Zurich Lions. At that time it was Zürcher Schlittschuhclub. Now today it's ZSC Lions, they called. And so I was able to finance my studies, but then I had to stop because it was just not manageable together with a job. Then in winter there were like, in the beginning when I was young, was like 3 trainings per week and 1 game. And when I joined the higher leagues, there were like sometimes 3 to 4 trainings, maybe sometimes 2 times a day. And that was already quite challenging time-wise.
It was like a semi-pro or pro?
It was like a semi-pro, yeah. I would call it semi-pro, yeah. Because often you would play twice a week. Like at my time, there were Tuesday and Saturday. And sometimes you were like in Geneva, finishing the game at, 11:30 in Geneva, then driving home. You arrived 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, then next day you had to go to school or you had to go to work, whatever. And so that was quite difficult.
But besides of having the possibility to finance your studies, for example, did you get paid separately for playing hockey?
For playing hockey, before I never got paid, but when I did the studies, I got paid. So I could just afford a car to go to the trainings, and I could finance my living, but that's it.
That's it.
Not huge, but I could make it.
There are people in Switzerland who are playing, for example, pro, and they are getting a good salary.
I mean, today it's what we played at that time is a different game what they play today. So that has been like the physical aspect and the speed of the game has changed so dramatically within the, that was like 1983, 1982 when I played. So it's like, 40 years ago. So the game is totally different today. And the people also, I mean, the guys that play today, I don't know exactly, but there is some good salaries being paid by it. I mean, they really live on it. They make 100 or 200 or 300 or maybe even more.
Per year.
Per year, yeah.
Did your parents also practice sports?
Actually not. They were never really doing sports, except my father then, when I did sports, he started to jog. And then he developed quite a good, a good routine with periodically running, and sometimes I had to join him. And then we went like for 20 kilometers, which was a bit long for me because I thought it was boring. But I always sometimes went with him, and that was fun. But my mother, they played a little bit of tennis, but never really. They like to walk or something like that, but not really that much into sport. But they always gave me a great support. I mean, they always helped me. They came with me. They funded me that I could do all these kind of things. I appreciate that a lot.
I see you are a competitive man, and I'm curious, when did this competitiveness came?
I think that just started when I remember well. It started when I was like 12, 13, when I joined this company because you wanted to score, you want to make a goal. And then when exactly as it is, there is sometimes penalties, and then one player has to stay on the bench. And as we were always in the same line, 3 guys, and it was always me that had to stay on the bench. And then I asked my father, I'm not so bad, why do I always have to spend? You see, look, the other one, he's running much more, he's moving more, so maybe just do a little bit more, and that worked. So I started to do that, and then I was the one that was playing when we had the penalty.
Good strategy from your father. And what led you to start doing CrossFit?
It's a long. Actually, it's not. It's a long story because I used to go to Mallorca a lot, and one day my gym was closed. They shut it down for some reason, and then I had to look around for a new one. So I checked out a lot of different gyms, and by chance I dropped by this CrossFit box. It's called CrossFit Mallorca, that you know. And I went in there, and at the time I was working a lot with kettlebells, and they had a whole range, and I said, it's pretty good. And nevertheless, because my wife was with me, we joined another gym that was close by. But I said, that looked interesting. So after the holiday, I went home, and then by chance, I wanted just to look what is CrossFit, because I didn't really realize just by looking at the gym what it really was. Then I seen the CrossFit Games. I said, oh wow, that looks interesting, all these women and men throwing around heavy weights, doing crazy stuff. And the next time I go to Mallorca, I will join this foundation club, because CrossFit Mallorca will not let you train without having a foundation course. So that was like a 5 days foundation course that I took with Tomeo. I don't know whether you know him. He used to be coach there. And I took that next time. I took that course, and from that day on, I was hooked, totally hooked. And I mean, I'm not lying. I had to jump on this box, even the lower one. I was afraid because I haven't been jumping for, with my hip surgery at about 52. I haven't been doing stuff like that anymore. So I was really afraid, but like today, you do 100 or 150 box jumps with no problem.
Yeah. And you were 52 when you had surgery?
I was 52, I think 52. Yeah.
And when you started CrossFit?
I started CrossFit that was 2017. That was
8 years ago, yeah.
58, that's 58, yeah,
58.
So a little bit later. In the period in between, I did a lot of gym stuff, and so I was quite fit, but not as fit as when I then started to do seriously CrossFit. But I remember well, I finished my holiday in Mallorca, and I said, I have to look for a gym I was totally nervous, and then I found one in Freienbach. And I mean, like the day when I came back, next day I was in the gym.
In 2021, you participated in the CrossFit Games as a Masters athlete in 60-64 years old category.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, CrossFit awards the title of fittest on earth to the winners based on various fitness events, which include weightlifting, gymnastics, track and field, swimming, rowing, and other exercises from different sports disciplines. You made it there from first place in Switzerland,
Yep.
second in Europe, and 25th in the world. Am I right?
That was the Open, yes.
The Open.
Yeah.
And you finished 16th in the competition overall.
Yes.
My question is, how did you feel competing in the same arena as the fittest people on the planet?
Well, it was, of course, a very unique and amazing experience. Even though, and I have to say, it was my very first competition. Apart from Open and stuff like that, or qualifiers, for the games, I never done any kind of competition, and I was never in an arena. I was never like being with so many people around me, and so that was quite amazing, and I think also that is why I really missed my first workout in Madison. It's just like we were standing there, and then they said 1, 2, 3, go, and I was like, okay, and everybody was running, and I was like, what are these? I mean, we have some time. Why do they? But everybody was sprinting to the rope. It was rope climb and deadlifts, and I was just like, I lost a few seconds only, and it was only, I realized at the end when the workout was over, it was only like 2.5 to 3 minute workout. But in the beginning, I was so little in experience that I just didn't realize that beforehand.
So directly to the World Championships.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's the most important thing you learned about yourself from your experience at the CrossFit Games?
From myself. You know, I went there and maybe 2 years before I went to the games, I had a foot problem with my Achilles, and that always had an impact on my performance. And I knew, because the first event was a run, 5K, and I haven't been running a 5K for probably 15 years. Mm-hmm. You know? So I just had to manage myself to get through that event, that I could continue with the other events. And it's just saying how somehow you find a way. You know, that's what I learned. I mean, you just have, if you have a goal and if you want to do something, there is always a way that you can get there. It's maybe not an easy one. Maybe you have to take a detour, or you have to take a step down, step back. But you can always reach your goal. My goal was just to finish all the events and have a good result. And at the end, I wasn't totally happy, but it was I gave my best. I couldn't have done much better, but with a little bit more experience, I think I could have gained a few more spots. But I mean, at the end, I was just happy to get there. I mean, I remember well when Rob from CrossFit Mallorca, I was sitting on the bike, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Konrad, how did it go in the Open?" I said, "Yeah, not bad." And how did you do the qualifier? I said, "Yeah, I did the qualifier." And said, "How did that go?" "Oh, reasonably good." "What spot did you make?" I said, 19. He said, "What? 19? You going to the games?" He was like, oh, it was so funny, his reaction, you know. But he realized, and at that time was most unsecure if the games would take place because of COVID. So there was a big struggle, forth and back. Can we go? Can't we go? What are the circumstances? Can I get into the United States? I was not, how do you say, geimpft, vaccinated, you know, vaccinated. But at the end it worked.
So the saying, if there is a will, there is a way, is true.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, totally.
What are 2 things you wish you had known before the CrossFit Games, regardless of the competition?
Well, a little bit maybe more competitive experience, of course, that would be helpful. And then another thing, that's probably the real deal.
The real deal, yeah.
Getting really more experience before that, you know how this works, and because when you have these competitions, you warm up, then you wait, then you get to the next warm-up area, you warm up again a little bit, then you wait another half an hour. So when you really come to the field, you're not really warm. So that's quite, for me as an athlete, that's quite difficult, because I'm a person that needs to really be like sweating and hot to get my best performance. And that's maybe something I have to better learn, how to get, ready at the time when the game starts.
I already have an idea about your weekly training schedule, but I want the listeners to better understand the volume structure and consistency required to be in such a great shape. Could you give us an example?
Maybe I'm not the best example.
But it seems it works.
It works for me, but it's maybe not working for everyone. I honestly have to say, I just like to do sport, And I know myself, I probably also do a bit too much. So I could maybe be better by doing less.
Less.
Yes. But on the other hand, because it's CrossFit, it's so complex, and there is still so many things for me to learn. When you ask me what's your best movement, I say I don't really have a good movement. It's just some might be better, but some are really bad. So I have to get better at any one of them. So that makes me train a lot, different stuff, and I train basically 6 times per week usually, and I just listen more to my body, then decide also. I have a schedule on how I train and I work, and then I also make some training cycles on strength sometimes. If I feel my back squat is getting weak, I do like a 5-6 week cycle and try to improve it. Or even when it's in the class, it's good as well when we have a back squat cycle. Or I know after last games, I knew my pulling strength is not good enough. So I worked on that a lot with strict work. So I tried to put in that. And now, since about 6 weeks, I have a training program to focus on certain areas.
But you train 6 days a week?
Yeah.
And sometimes 2 times a day, right?
Sometimes 2 times a day. If I train 2 times a day, it's maybe a normal session in the morning, and then maybe weightlifting in the evening, or it's maybe a normal session in the morning and then some zone 2 training in the afternoon. That is what I do. That's most of the time like that. It's either or.
How do you spend your rest days?
My rest days? Oh, like yesterday. Like Sundays.
Yeah, like Sundays.
Just laying around. No, on rest days, I maybe go for a walk, but most of the time I really stay very easy Sunday. Try to sleep in the morning, sleep a bit more. Read my newspaper. I like to read a lot. I read a lot, but not so much books, but more like newspapers and journals. And then try to eat well all the time. Then maybe go for a walk in the afternoon. See my family, my granddaughters, stuff like that.
Many good coaches and experienced coaches that I met and heard say that if you train hard, you have to learn how to relax hard, because many unexperienced coaches and new coaches, and they came up with new protocols and this and plunge and therapy and electrostimulants and foam rolling.
Okay.
But this is also, what they don't understand is that this is also stress on the body. So more stress doesn't mean more recovery. That's
no, for me it's important. I mean, if we're talking about, I mean, you know, you've seen me. I like to train. You know, I would even train more if I could, but I'm lacking the energy. But important for me is really, it's number one, is a good sleep. So if I have to develop something to get good at sleeping, that's probably number one. And then it's like by far nothing coming, you know, like all these supplements, all that stuff. Forget about that. Just try to sleep well, and that is, for me, it's also supported by good nutrition. So if I'm, for example, I just found out like the last few weeks again, I have to have like enough carbs during the day. And if I have too little carbs, I sleep worse. If I have enough carbs, I sleep much better. So and also find this balance, how much we need exactly, not too much, not to gain weight. As you said, a good gymnast, the best thing is get strong or lose some weight.
Yeah.
That is, and I'm still on the heavier side, you know, so I should, if I could lose some weight, it would be good. But on the other hand, because we're training really a lot and hard, we have to have these carbs. Otherwise, because most of the time our training is running on carbohydrates, so we need to replenish them often. And I try also, like during training, eat like, you don't like it, but it's good for me to have some glucose, some gummy bears. So at least, because at the end you can only take up 90 grams per hour of carbohydrates, and you have to replenish them as fast as possible to support your recovery, because then also recovery means your muscles are recovered, but it helps you also to sleep better. So I think that's a very critical point.
Sleep number one for you?
For me, sleep is number one. I can tell in the morning when I slept well, I'm fine. If I slept bad, there is also not so much, then you lack sometimes motivation to go to training, but you go anyway.
What are you doing differently now compared to 4 years ago in your preparation for the games?
I think 4 years ago it was quite random. You know, I was attending the classes. I knew what I was better at, what I'm not so good. And then at the end, it's also a bit of luck that the right workouts are coming, the right movements that you like. You know, it's also, I mean, that plays. If you're on the top, maybe that doesn't play a role. But for me, that's like more edgy on to make it. Then it's significant. But, this time, you know, I was really, after the games, I was really sick from COVID. I was like 2 weeks in the hospital, and I was like this when I came out of hospital, because I couldn't move for like 2-3 weeks at all. So I lost basically my body's like my, you know, this is like pretty big or reasonably big. It was like just flat. And so I had to rebuild from there. That was a long way actually, but also my lungs and everything. So it took me almost 2 years to get to the stage that I could train again as much. Like I felt this year in March, I felt I can train again as much as I used to before. And now I try to train more on the weaknesses than I did at the time when I went to the game. So I try to improve the areas where I was weak, like weightlifting, more pulling, strength, and also one is like double unders, but I still struggle at them, even though. But that's my Achilles that are a problem, so I cannot train that often. That's why I try now to do like smaller sets, but maybe a bit more often to strengthen and that muscle, and especially the tendons, that they don't suffer too much when I do big sets.
Were you vaccinated when you had COVID and it was so bad, or not?
I was not vaccinated.
Do you think if you would be vaccinated,
No,
it would change something?
So. No, I don't think so. When I got it, my immune system was totally down. Because I remember I was training after the games. I was like continuing. I didn't stop like taking a month off or something, but continued. And then I did a training with a friend. This 12 days of Christmas. That was brutally hard. Really, it took me like an hour, 10 minutes or more. And it was a really, really hard by no shortcuts training. And after that, I was so flat on the floor. And I could feel probably there, as I got it from somebody. And if my immune system had been a bit better, I would have been surviving, you know. But since that happened, and interestingly is, my son, my oldest son, got it as bad as I got it. So we both, so I think it's just, how do you say, it's genetically influenced that I like reacted on that specific virus much stronger than another one. So it was just, at the end, my immune system was not so strong. And exactly that virus hit my genetic system harder than some other ones, you know. It's just bad luck. I would consider it bad luck.
Yeah.
Because I have to say, I haven't been sick for 40 years before. I was never sick. Never.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I never had COVID.
Yeah.
For example, this virus doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy.
Were you vaccinated?
Yes.
Okay.
But I got vaccinated after almost 1 year because in Romania they made a law that you cannot enter the gym.
Without.
And I had to work.
Of course.
And I had to train. And I was sitting home and wondering, what now? And
course.
it was the only option.
It's
And
like
then
when
I
you're
said,
being a flight attendant. There is no option.
no option.
Yeah.
And you know what's funny? Even though we've trained together multiple times, we've never talked about your work.
My work.
And I did some research regarding your business and finance background. And I would like to ask you some questions based on the information I found.
But first, I have to say, since I'm 65, you know, I'm in the pension age. So last September, I really stopped fully work. I mean, officially. Officially, I get now officially paid by the government.
That's good. How does it feel?
Oh, it's very good. I mean, I wouldn't complain. I was working a lot in my life, and I think my wife and myself, we are enjoying a lot of free time that we have.
Great. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
And what I found, I want you to correct me and add, of course. Dibona Holding AG was a limited company founded in 1993 by Christoph Richterich as president, Hans-Jürg Lüdi as vice president, and you, Konrad Kaufmann, member of the board of directors. And it was active in activities of holding companies.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe this is not totally correct. The company was, that was at the time, what you read, it's just the board members at the time when you looked it up. So this has changed. Actually, the company was founded in 1993 by my father-in-law, Fritz Hunziker. So he's the founder. Actually, the founder of the company is even his father. So it's more like, at the time, it was more like a tax issue. Because the holding company wasn't really necessary. The operative company is called Fritz Hunziker and Co. AG. Manufacturing in the beginning was manufacturing candies. Candies like jelly candies, hard candies, cough candies, you name it, you know. And over time, this business developed more into like nutraceuticals. So until last year, when we owned the company, it was probably one of the biggest manufacturers of nutraceuticals, like gummy bears with vitamins, a lot of vitamins. But in the beginning of last year, we sold all our activities. I was active in that company from 1991 until 2012. So for 21 years, I was running the company. Beforehand, my father-in-law, and before him was his father running the company. So the company itself is, now I have to count, 75 years old or even more.
75 years old.
So I ran it for about 21 years, and at a certain time, the company was given to the 3 daughters of Fritz Hunziker, and I was the son-in-law. And at that point of time, we said, okay, it's not to get any difficulties within the family. We decided that I go into the board and stop my operative role, and then all the other 2 members that you mentioned are also son-in-laws. So we managed now the past, since 2012, that's 12 years, we were board members, managed the company, and I was also managing, we have a little company, or we had a little company in Italy that also was manufacturing caramelle, so calf candies, and I was managing that company also during that time. But since January 8th last year, we sold all our activities because we all, the board members, we were all like even in pension, one, and I got to pension, and the other one is 2 years in pension. So we didn't really see who would follow. So we were looking for a buyer for the company, and we could find it was actually our biggest client that took over. That had this client had no own production, and so it was like for him it was fantastic. For us, it was fantastic as well. And we kept all the real estate where the company is located. So now they will stay for another at least 7 to 10 years. And we're happy, they're happy. So it was at the end, it was a very nice deal.
I read that the company moved its location from Zug to Bar and later to Wollerau. Why did you decide to relocate the company several times, and what were the benefits or challenges?
Well, it's not really, it's just the holding company that was moved. And they were always, behind that were also always like tax reasons and cost reasons. But the holding company has no operative role. It's just the holding company was holding different companies that we owned. We owned a maximum of 3 companies. And they were reporting into the holding, but the holding itself has more like only a financial role, not an operative role. So there is not really a management in the company, but it's the company that needs to be managed. Is like these, like it was Halterbonbon, it was Fritz Hunziker AG, and it was a Kellas in Italy that are the operative companies.
I was thinking that these moves are or were made because of the tax reasons.
Yeah, were more financial issues. Yeah, not only tax but also cost issues.
Cost issues.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking you, because I'm interested to learn the market.
Okay.
Especially here in Switzerland, and with your experience, of course, you can tell me a lot about.
I don't know.
And also, the company changed the audit firms a few times. Can you explain me why this happens in Switzerland and how choosing the right audit partner impacts a business?
Well, you know, like it's like when you do a normal purchase. At the end, you're looking at what is the cost that you have to pay for an audit firm. So every like 3-4 years, or 2 years even though. You just send out a Pflichtenheft, what's that? You send out your demand, how you want to have it and what you need, and then you let them offer. And then you have a screening, they come, they present themselves, and then you say, okay, we probably could work well together with this one, and that one. So it's like, you know, you want to optimize your cost, because the prices for audit firms, they vary. When you work with them, then of course, there is some firms that are like, I have to say, over the years, audit firms became or were much more under pressure, because some companies didn't do very nicely or didn't behave very nicely. So the state put more pressure on the audit firms that they really audit more strictly, or you know, they got also fines. Like there was this big case from Arthur Andersen. You remember that company was even they shut it down because they did so big mistakes with auditing, and so they got more and more picky. And sometimes when you have an audit firm that is going in like crazy details which are not relevant, but by law or by them understanding the law, think it's relevant, then it sometimes can get crazy for you, you know, because then you have to deal with issues and it's so much paperwork, you know, already today in the companies, which are useless. It's just because to satisfy some parameter of the law, which doesn't make the company better or doesn't make the information better for the shareholders, then it's just crazy. You can run with some audit firms into this position, and then you have to say, okay, we have to change. But you know, always the change of the audit firm is always released by the shareholders, not by the management.
And do you think by choosing between one or another audit firms can impact the trust, for example, from the other investors, if there is one more prestigious or company or not?
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end, yeah, there is. I mean, you will not choose an audit firm that has a bad reputation, but it's usually. I would say most of them are okay, but you have to find also the one that understands your business best, so that you can do a smooth audit that is relevant, with a relevant result for the shareholders, and still not being too blown up in terms of paperwork.
As a leader, how do you balance short-term goals with long-term goals, especially when managing assets and liabilities? And I'll give you an example. I read that Dibona merged with Halcon, which came with some assets, but also some liabilities. How do you deal with this kind of situations?
Well, that was just, you know, this was just... we bought this company. It was called, actually, the operative company was called Haltebonbon. And they had also Halcon for tax reasons. And we didn't need two holdings, you know, so we had to merge them. It's just, otherwise we would have to do two bookkeepings for two companies, which we don't really need. That was the reason why we had to merge them. But like short-term and long-term goals, I mean, you know, we are always were family owned, and you can see that the long-term goals are always much more important than the short-term. So we're not going crazy if you have a year that is maybe not so good, or let's pull this order in so we can have this year better result. No, it's just say, let's have a smooth a smooth year, a smooth work, and let's see what's best for our customers, because that will help you being the best in the market for long term.
Long term.
So it's never short term thinking.
Always prioritize the long term.
Yeah, always long term.
As someone with a sports background, what leadership lessons from sports helped you in managing your company? Are there parallels between running a company and competing in CrossFit?
Yeah, I think it's like, it's a very simple one. And I also put it a bit differently in wording on my CrossFit account. It's, you have to be, you walk the talk. So you're being natural, you say something and you mean that. Being honest to the people, treat everybody the same way, tell them clearly what you want, in a nice way, in an okay way, and then, but challenging. I mean, it's not that it's just being nice to each other, but in a right way, but in a clear way. And I think that, so when you lead by example, I think it's always the best. I mean, it's like parenting, you know. Your kids, they see you, they do what you do. And in a company it's the same. And the boss goes for a coffee break for half an hour, his people will go, yeah, of course, this is normal, the boss does it the same way. So it's really leading by example, being honest and do what you say, not hide, don't have a hidden agenda.
So this works in business, in sports, in family?
Yeah, it's the same way.
Lead by example.
Yeah, it's not that complicated.
I'm just starting to learn about finance and business strategy. And what's one piece of advice you would give someone like me who wants to understand the financial world in Switzerland?
The financial world in Switzerland, it's a big world. It's a big world. Well, I mean, at the end, read a lot, because the world is very complex, and it becomes more and more complex. I just had a meeting yesterday where we were talking about AI, which also with people out of the finance business, and which will have a tremendous impact on a lot of businesses and a lot of workforce as well, but can be either good or maybe for some can be bad, but you have to think about what is it going to mean for yourself, or what is going to mean for the society. And a good tip is just try to educate yourself as much as possible in that area, and never trust just one source. So there is just too much information, and there is also a lot of people, sorry for the word, bullshitting around. So you have to check different options, and then start also by what you learn by reading, what makes the most sense. So never shut down your brain up here because somebody said something, but always try to find out what you think is the best, or how it should work. We call in German, we say guter Menschenverstand. So try to find out what's really correct. It's not, there is a lot of people that are very intelligent, but they're not always right.
Yeah.
So at the end, you have to make up your own opinion. But it is valid for a lot of, all this Instagram stuff also that tries to influence us. Also there, you have to find out which is some are just not correct. So you have to educate yourself very profound to make sure that you're not underlying some mistake or some what's that, Irrtum? Yeah, some mistake. You know.
You told me earlier that you read some of my goals for 2025.
But I haven't finished yet.
And one of the goals is to read 12 books on finance.
Yeah.
And I will definitely ask you for a list, and I will start from there because I'm really curious, and I will probably provide to the listeners also in my newsletter the books that you will recommend me if you do it. And now, as you told about leading by example, I want to move to more personal questions to get closer to the end of the interview. And you're definitely leading by example and have raised the bar pretty high for the next generations. What are the most important qualities you tried to instill in your sons to ensure that they will be at least as successful as you are?
Well, you know, they don't have to be as successful as I am. The only wish I have, and I think we're on a very good way, that they are just good people. You know, I want to raise good people, honest, friendly, honest, living a fulfilled life, whatever they do, whatever wish they have to achieve in life, having a good family, having a good wife. And I was always telling them, one of my biggest wishes that they will meet the same good wife that I met. So it was my wish for them, and they've done pretty good so far.
This is also a question that I want to ask you. What's the secret to a successful marriage, and what do you recommend I look for when I choose my wife?
To look for who? I think there is, at the end, it's luck also. I mean, you when you're young, you find somebody, you like her. But like in our case, we met she was 27, let me think, no. We got married at 27, I was 30, like 1.5 years before. So not that young. I would recommend not get married too young. So you have already some experience, you had your previous life, you had some fun before, which doesn't necessarily need to be true, but for most cases I think it's a good way to start. And then it's you have to build this inner trust, so that you know, you at the end you can rely all the time on your partner, and one partner is supporting the other in some areas, the other supporting the other one, and at the end it's just, for me it's like really being to build that trust that whatever will happen, there is always somebody there for you to support you. And I think that's the big secret. And also give my wife always supported me when I was working like late night, and you know, she was not like complaining, oh, I am not here, I have to deal with the kids all the time myself, and no, she didn't do that. So I was really free, so leave some free space for each one. You don't have to do everything all the time together. Of course, you spend a lot of time together, but it's also each one should have his own part and live some freedom, and learn, deal with the issues, talk. No marriage is going smooth like this. No one. It's always something, you know, but as long as you keep the as long as you keep talking to each other, it's very important. Though for men it's sometimes difficult because men don't like to talk that much. But at the end, you have to listen and you have to talk. You have to formulate your wishes. You have to what you want, and the other way. And then you have to also to accept what the other part wants. You cannot only say, "Oh, it's only me." The other part is also demands. And if you respect that, I think it's a good foundation. So communication is probably what I've learned so far in my
number one.
In my 36th year now.
Congratulations.
Communication is very important. And when you're young, you may be not so good at it, but I think when you get a bit older, you can improve. I can still improve.
What do you think about mandatory military service for young men in Switzerland? Do you believe it helps to create more responsible and mentally strong men compared to the Western society?
That's a very good question. I think I did it. Both of my sons didn't do it. They didn't want to go. I mean, it's up to them if they want. I didn't force them. It's their decision. But I think it's also not bad. For some, it may be even good. And I did. They also wanted me that I continue, and I even had to go. But then I really didn't want to go another 17 weeks at that time when I did it to do it again. I wasn't so attached to military service. I think I learned some things, but not specifically well. But I think our system is good. I support it. I didn't have too much fun going there, but I did it. But I think the system is good, and for young people to get to learn some other stuff, and also like maybe also nowadays to get like a little bit more
aggressive.
In my English, not aggressive. It's like you have to do it this way, and they have to learn. They have to obey. It's maybe not for some. It's for sure not bad.
Where do you take your inspiration from?
I don't think I'm taking inspiration from anywhere. You mean in terms of sport or in terms of any kind?
Any kind.
Maybe I'm not that inspired.
That's good, because that tells me you don't rely on external factors to be the way you are, or for external motivation or inspiration.
I think so. I don't need anyone that I can support or follow. That I can support, yes, but I don't need I don't have a role model where I look up to. I never had that. Of course, there were some sports character that I really looked at. They're cool. They're really doing a good job. I think they're doing well. But at the end, I'm myself, and I want to do what I like to do, and I think I can motivate myself reaching goals without having somebody that is pulling me in that direction.
What's your favorite book, Konrad?
As I said initially, I'm not reading that much actually, and I have to admit I haven't been reading a book for many years. If I had read books, it was almost like business or stuff like that. When I had to learn, all this business stuff. I read more like journals, reports, newspaper, all that stuff. So I cannot really name a book that I would have to go to really far back.
So
I never like to read them. Never really like to read that much. Books. I read a lot, but not books.
So you read the kind of stuff that Warren Buffett says he reads daily. He says he wakes up and reads
financial
for
reports or
6 hours a day he reads.
Not so much, but newspapers, news, stuff that interests me about nutrition, all that stuff. Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
I don't really have a favorite one, but a one that is always in my mind somehow. I don't know really why, but because it was played so well, was Braveheart. It's kind of brutal, but it's very well played by Mel Gibson, and I think that's also a good actor. This comes up because somehow it's. I always have this movie in my mind. I cannot even tell you why, but I've seen a lot of good movies. I also like other action movies and stuff like that. And I like one of the series I really like the most is I told you, House of Cards. You have to see that.
I will start.
It's really interesting, and since I heard Barack Obama saying that 95% of that is true in the political system in America, so it makes it even more worth watching it. I think it's pretty interesting. You can also learn something.
I will definitely.
How politics work, and how you get to do a deal.
What is one thing you know that you wish more people knew?
I wish that all our kids that go to school would have to visit a class that learns them about nutrition. So I think if I look at our health system and how many sick people we have, obese people, people with bad heart, bad skin, whatever, people are not knowledgeable about how to become really healthy. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that many sick people, or sick or obese people, or people that can't move well in our society. It's just that we have to learn from young age what is good food, how do I prepare it, and this knowledge is totally missing, and I don't understand it. If we tell about supporting our health system, it's not pushing in more pills. It's about people educating on how, and I'm sure we would only have like half or even less of the cost you have today if people would eat correctly.
So you bet more on prevention than the treatment?
Absolutely. It's also the goal should also be that the doctor will be paid by keeping you healthy and not feeding you with medicine.
Medicine.
But the system to set up is quite difficult. I understand, but I think really we have to start in early age with our kids, that they and it's at the end it's so simple. Just eat something that has no label on it. It's not that complicated, but we have to tell people that has a significant impact on their future life.
I read a great book. One of my friends offered me. It's called Outlive by Peter Attia. Mm-hmm. He's a scientist and ex-athlete, who's researching protocols and on how to prevent the diseases, the heart problems, the diabetes, everything. And he wrote a book like this on the medicine 3.0, he called it. Mm-hmm. And there he's talking in such a way that even a 10-year-old can understand. It's an amazing book that I recommend to everyone to read it, because it's about prevention and not the treatments.
I'm following him on Instagram.
Peter
Yeah,
Attia.
yeah. He's like also he's the one that's saying longevity is determined by your VO2 max and your muscle mass. And even though you're like this example is there is nothing outweighing muscle mass and VO2 max. Even though you smoke a little bit or something, has never that big impact than these two other subjects that I was mentioning.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah.
Is it something you've learned in the last 5 years that you wish you knew earlier?
Yeah, I think in the last few years, I even though before I always occupied myself with nutrition, but since like the last 2-3 years, I'm doing more like, especially for sport also, and I think I learned a lot. And if I had learned a little bit earlier, like especially that my son was preaching also, but he says, Dad, you're working out so hard, but you're not eating enough. So working out and doing sports and eating has a big impact, and I just can see that since I'm eating properly, my muscle mass and my well-being is much better than before. So eating has a big impact, and if I had, understood that a bit earlier, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I also wish that I knew these things that I know now from 8 years old.
Yeah.
But my parents didn't know.
Yeah.
Their parents didn't know, so
That is why I say we have to educate.
learn in school.
Yeah, very early. Because, and I can't understand why we don't have a class like that in school. It's
Because of the politics and how the world works.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you the last question. If you could leave behind just one small piece of paper with 3 pieces of advice for your sons and all the generations that come after them, what would you write?
Stay as you are. Be kind to people. And you can get it if you really want.
Thank you very much, Konrad. If there is one more subject that you would like to discuss.
I think we went through a lot of things, but let me just thank you. And we're having already, since you're only here for a short time, but we had some nice sessions and good training already. I got a lot of good tips from you as well, and I hope we'll spend some more time together exploring new things and better sports and better performance in the next few months or even years.
Of course.
That would be nice.
Thank you very much for the kind words, and thank you again for accepting my invitation.
It
was a pleasure.
I hope I can contribute a little bit of my life to it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Robert.